every time you do this because we take some of that energy and it feeds us. And so this is how they are behaving. Whether you think they are actually reptilians in this universe is immaterial. They are behaving as though it is true that they are dealing with this extra-dimensional or extraterrestrial power. And part of the deal that they have with them is that they must tell you explicitly what's going on, even if they do so in such a manner that you disbelieve it. You are still nonetheless at some psychic level willing in your acceptance of it. So, for instance, they use all of the weird patches in the military to signify various different entities to whom they're particularly sacrificing these divisions of military individuals. Now, bear in mind, I am a military brat, and I have a great deal of respect for the individuals that find themselves in our military. These are some of the finest people around. Sure, you get some real, nut jobs in there, but on the main, 99% of the people are I'd love to have them living around me. But they're all in a situation where they're being poorly abused and used by these guys. So we must also, on the other side of this, in a different form, not because we're, trying to feed energies or anything, but because we know the rules of the game, we can play their same simple games against them. So in other words, if I am duplicitous with my enemy, that mere duplicitousness is a weakness for me. It provides an opening for my enemy to tweak with my psychology, if nothing else. Does that make any sense at all?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I must be honest with my enemy and tell him, I'm going to beat the crap out of you. And I'm not going to do it joyfully or anything, but I will enjoy it, the expression of my art, and feel good in the physical part of it all. And I'm going to beat the crap out of you and keep throwing you around until you stop doing this nasty behavior and you start talking to me as a human. And that actually ends up giving me more power, especially with the powers that be, who use that same methodology with their minions and themselves. So I'm co-opting their strength. One of the things I've done as a radical linguist is that I've started to co-opt language, take it away from the powers that be, because I can get there ahead of them and pollute the language stream so that they can't achieve what they want through their propaganda ministries. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, but we were a year and a half ahead of the use of the word revolution, and they had slated to use it, and it fizzled when they had brought it up through the CNN kind of thing, right? And there were a number of these instances that George, you and I can probably detail if we sat down and think about it, where we knew certain words were going to be power words, and you know how they'll repeat them endlessly, over and over and over and over again, like they changed the term from soldier to troops, and we don't hear soldier anymore. And they have all these power words, and when they work, they go with them forever. Global warming. But the minute that it crashes, it's instantly disposed of because it has lost its power. Plus, further, if they bring it up again, it's a negative reminder, and it actually takes power away from them. So they won't use global warming ever again as a term on CNN because it removes power from their masters as we all sit around and chuckle at them. Again, does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that I brought that up because for our listeners that is a much clearer example than my response, which was, hey, this is the way it has to work out, and our speaking about it only helps us smile more.
Correct. And it's true, all of the stuff. Look at the most powerful single individuals we've ever seen on this planet, and you'll see that they followed a particular rule set that we can also follow in our own way and to our own degree, and it gains us power. And I'm talking about Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King. And these people said, I'm coming to get you. Here's why. I'll be there next Tuesday. I'm leaving Monday. Get ready. and they got ready, and they still went ahead and came and got them. And it's a question of how you proceed in this, but if you follow the rules that these guys use, non-cooperation, passive resistance, non-participation in evil acts, then you start instantly removing power from all of these guys. And it's we're coming to a head here, I think, where we're going to be faced with choices around the revolution meme in July. And those choices can lead us down basically two separate streams that diverge from each other. And in one, the use of violence, the falling back to violence out of rage and frustration, deprives us of power and actually gives the power back to the powers that be, simply because they're all set up to deal with violence. They know how to react to it. They've got all kinds of plans for it, but they can't react to the non-violent, non-cooperation, non-participation. And once that starts rolling, it has all kinds of ramifications, because something that's not really discussed too much is the vast number of mutinies that occurred within the British military power structure in India at the time that Mahatma Gandhi was going through the cleansing of India. And the British didn't mention the fact that most of their Indian, or a large percentage, say, except for the Sikhs and the Gurt and some other group, I can't think at the moment, they had 40 to 50% desertion rates. And then even more than that, they would get new people and they would desert. And they did it deliberately, where they got trained by the British after 4 or 5 weeks in all these techniques, became accepted, got uniforms, and then they would desert, because it cost their masters tons of money to replace them. And there were millions of willing Indians. And they got a couple of weeks of food and work out of it.
Beautiful.
So it's a matter of strategy and tactics there. However, we're really up to it this summer, I think, because there's going to be a convergence of effects all around us. You noticed the other day, I think it was on Friday, we got the first notice of the Earth-headed solar storm.
Right, and let us not interrupt you on that, so we'll take a quick break right now, very short. Beyond the Ordinary with Clif and Adventures in Future Viewing.
If we do not destroy ourselves, we will one day venture to the stars. For thousands of years, people have wondered about the universe. Did it stretch out forever, or was there a limit? From the Big Bang to black holes, from dark matter to a possible Big Crunch, our image of the universe today is full of strange sounding ideas. How lucky we are to live in this time, the first moment in human history when we are, in fact, visiting other worlds. A still more glorious dawn awaits, not a sunrise, but a galaxy rise, a morning filled with 400 billion suns.
With the very Beyond the Ordinary Clif on Beyond the Ordinary. So, solar flares?
Well, actually a geomagnetic storm, slightly different than a solar flare, but because it's within the category of solar flares. But we've had this storm that we were warned about last Friday. Now, we note that last Friday we had like 22 large earthquakes, but the geomagnetic storm starts hitting, supposed to hit yesterday and today, but we started seeing some component of it hit late Sunday, and by Monday we were up to over 400 earthquakes in the day. And then here it is on Tuesday, and we note we've got simultaneous antipolar mine collapses. You know, they've had a mine collapse in China as well as a mine collapse here in West Virginia. And this is a somewhat a significant, in my way of thinking, sign that we've got a level of geologic instability that should increase. I mean, I was actually talking about this with George Ure the other day, and basically I told him, George, go away, don't bug me. You know, come back and tell me when we've got 4,000 earthquakes a day, and then I'll be paying attention. However, we're starting to see some of the infrastructure effects of that, and that should be noted. That as we scale up in solar activity, we will also scale up in earthquake activity. And some of the stuff I've read in the early Sanskrit, which is to say the very early pre-Vedic Sanskrit descriptions of the time, show a period of time where in this one particular little region they were getting what we would think of as 7-point earthquakes every day. After it built up after a number of months, and then a lot of little ones every day. And we may actually get to that here, and it's expected as we move forward in a disturbed sun situation. So if it is correct that the mega sunspot cycle will cause us some level of major disruption in 2012, then it is expected as a precursor or as a necessary part of that we will see a scaling up of earthquakes and it wouldn't be constant, it would be up and down on a daily basis. But over time, we should see it to where we're getting up to the point where globally we might have 4,000 or 5,000 earthquakes of some significance in a day. If that is the case, if we ever get to that, then then everybody can use that as a pretty sure temporal marker that the sun is getting close to popping off its larger cycle and swapping over, the end of the fifth Mayan cycle. So if we're correct about this, then the two major, well, there's actually a number of them, but the two major signs that we can look for as humans will be the angry sun face, which is lots of these prominences, maybe 50 or 60 or 70 or more filaments of these long-standing filaments, very unusual in our history, but now showing up. And we should also see a concurrent rise in earthquakes. Now, this is would be a very good indicator that it's time to head for the hills or get your boat and get out on the water, kind of a deal. I say it jokingly because I expect it to happen, but I hope it doesn't. But truly, that's what I'm looking for, is that if we get to a point where we've got all these earthquakes and